Hello and welcome to another standard video. Today we're taking a look at an updated version of the monowhite lifegain deck, a deck that I've covered before rotation, and in my video after the ban announcement I was already speculating on how the deck might look like after rotation, as we did lose the Knight Errant, which used to fill the role of a nice card draw effect to keep the creatures flowing. Now we can replace the Knight Errant with 2 copies of Exemplar of Light, a 4-mana 3/3 flyer, similar to your other Ajani's Pridemates, picks up a +1/+1 counter whenever we gain life, and whenever the first +1 counter is placed on it each turn, we also get to draw a card. So that can replace kind of the role that Knight Errant filled as a card draw engine. And Edge of Eternities also introduced Haliya or Haliya, Guided by Light, a 3-mana 3/3 legend, can be warped for just a single white mana, in which case we get to simply cast it, but at the end of our turn we have to put it in exile. But in the meantime we can still trigger its ability whenever Haliya or another creature we control enters. We gain 1 life. At the beginning of our end step, draw a card if we've gained 3 or more life this turn. So not a card we typically want to warp on turn 1, but if we already have some other life gain effects in play, we might be able to draw a card when we warp it, and then once again, of course, when we cast it for 3 mana. And then the goal of the deck is typically to get some cheap 1-drops in play that can repeatedly gain life to grow your Ajani's Pridemates, a classic from Magic, 2 mana 2/2, picks up a +1 counter whenever we gain life. And then Essence Channeler is usually the better version as a 2/1 as opposed to a 2/2, but when it dies we can move all of its +1 counters onto another creature, so that can be very helpful. And then we do not have any ways to lose life in our own turn to give the Channeler Vigilance and Flying. If you really wanted to, you could play Starting Town in the mana base, and then occasionally giving the Channeler Vigilance and Flying can come in handy, but of course Starting Town will also sometimes enter tapped or cost you life when you want to keep your life total high for Leyline of Hope, which is another payoff for playing this life gain strategy. If it's in our opening hand, we can put it in play right away for free, then whenever we gain life we gain an additional point of life instead, and as long as we have 27 or more life in Standard, our creatures get +2/+2, so then all our 1-drops turn into significant threats as well, and also of course gaining extra life makes it easier to get to 27 in the first place. And then our 1-drops include Healer's Hawk, just 1 mana, 1/1 flying lifelink, and the slightly upgraded Rune Lurker Bat, which occasionally lets us scry 1 at the beginning of our end step. Then there's the Hinterland Sanctifier, which gains a life whenever a creature enters under our control, so we can gain life without needing to attack. And then Leonin Vanguard can also passively gain life without needing to attack, assuming we control 3 or more creatures at the beginning of combat, and then it also gets +1/+1 until end of turn, so it can also attack as a 2/2 potentially. And then our interaction includes 4 copies of Sheltered by Ghosts. Sometimes you do need to get rid of some larger threats that are getting in the way, and this can also give our creature 1 extra power and lifelink, as well as a ward 2. So it can be a pretty swingy card. If your opponent has removal, then they can punish a card like Sheltered by Ghosts, but especially in kind of racing situations against other creature aggro decks, Sheltered by Ghosts can be a lifesaver, especially when paired with a Pridemate or Essence Channeler, which will just keep getting bigger and bigger. And then a Linden is another payoff for playing this mono-white lifegain deck. Whenever a white creature we control attacks, we gain 1 life, stapled onto a 3/3 Vigilance, so we can enable Linden's ability the same turn we play her. Maybe we've got some life-linking flyers that can attack, which in turn also grow all our Pridemates, Essence Channelers, and Exemplars, so that can also go off. And then the mana base is very easy and budget-friendly, 20 basic planes. So yeah, let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw with a keepable hand. Got Leyline in our opener, turn 1 Hawk, maybe turn 2 Sheltered by Ghosts. But ideally we find some other creatures we can play. Opponent fetching a forest, so could be a landfall deck. And yeah, Tifa's a perfect target for Sheltered by Ghosts. Although now I could also double spell the Guided by Light with a Rune Lurker Bat. Would gain a bit of life. And I would draw a card as well. But Tifa's just a little too scary to keep around. Now a Traveling Chocobo. Okay, so now we've got quite a few more options. Maybe it's guided by light into another sheltered by ghosts, although the traveling chocobo by itself doesn't bother me too much. So then we maybe go warping and playing a rune lurker. Which enables Leyline of Hope to pump the team. We'll draw a card end of turn. And keep sheltered by ghosts for like a Mossborn Hydra if that shows up, or another Tifa, since those are the cards that can actually win the game. Even if we're at 40 plus life, they can easily attack for 100 damage. It's gonna be a Lenor Elves. And that's it. Okay, so this turn, just gonna replay our Legend and a Sanctifier. Possible they're keeping up some instant speed removal, like an Archdruid's Charm, which could blow up one of my enchantments. But this still seems like the play. Opponent falls to 7, so they are facing lethal. And there's Tifa once again, but does not have haste. And our opponent explodes. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have what looks like a keepable hand. Turn 1 Hawk, since that can already gain life next turn. Whereas Vanguard would require another 1 mana creature. And then I can warp. And then I guess we do get to enable Vanguard here after all. So maybe it could have been reasonable to play Vanguard last turn to attack for an extra point of damage. But if we, let's say, drew in a Giannis Pridemate, going Hawk into Pridemate might have been preferable. Okay, so off to a decent start. I got to draw a card. Next turn I can redeploy it. Opponent, some sort of multicolored make your own luck combo deck. So not entirely sure what to expect. May not have a ton of targets for Sheltered by Ghosts until it's too late. Possible they have some board wipes, Ancient Cornucopia. I don't mind taking out, although now Leyline of Hope also pumps the team. So that could still be better. Gives the team essentially 6 additional power here. And means we're not overextending into a board wipe either. And we gained enough life to draw a card end of turn. So yeah, even if we don't have it in our opener, a Leyline of Hope is still perfectly reasonable to hardcast, as our curve is pretty low. So it makes for a nice curve topper. 4 mana I could see a Day of Judgment type effect. Another Cornucopia. So they're gonna need some more interaction here to survive. So I'm hesitant to play Sheltered by Ghosts, because if they have instant speed removal, that would be even more painful. But we could add a Linden and maybe another Vanguard to the board. Or I guess we can just unload everything and see what's up. And go to attackers. So a removal spell on our 5/5 can maybe save them. I guess Lightning Helix, getting 4 life of Cornucopia plus 3 more does it too. So now we might be a little vulnerable to a board wipe. But they didn't cast one last turn, and I imagine it would be a 4-mana sweeper. Even an ill-timed explosion, if they want to combine it with Cornucopia, they could have cast last turn. But now they can maybe go big with Make Your Own Luck. Although it doesn't let them cast the plotted card right now, which is probably what they need. So who knows? It's gonna be Cease from Cease and Desist, gaining a bunch more life. So if they have another instant in my turn, they can trigger Cornucopia again. Yeah, again, hesitant to Sheltered by Ghosts here. Also unlikely to make a difference in what our opponent can do right now. But we might cast them second main just to take them off additional mana. So our opponent trying to fight a life gain with a life gain. Has a bounce spell for Leyline. And gains the life, so they don't have another multicolored spell they're casting, presumably. Alright, Lightning Helix. So our opponent missed out on a little bit of life gain by getting the life with the Flood Maw as opposed to the Helix, which is multicolored. Now I could just go double Sheltered by Ghosts. Take out the Cornucopias, and then next turn replay the Leyline. Target Linden, because it's a little beefier to start out. Could also spread out the Sheltered by Ghosts. But now they would have to pay a pretty steep ward cost, which they probably can't afford. Opponent mills a Dragon Hunt, and Make Your Own Luck is not going to stabilize them right now. So that should do it. Awesome. Get to rank up here as well. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Hand is functional. Don't get to grow the Pride Maid on turn 2 just yet. Opponent with an Edge, a Rover, Leyline of Hope a turn late. Would have been awesome to have in our opener. And a Generous Plunder. So possible this is a Junt artifact sacrifice deck. Could Sheltered by Ghosts the Plunder already. Could maybe wait for the Rottenmouth Viper if they're playing that one. And then for now, playing Pride Maid still seems reasonable. And then next turn we can enable the Vanguard by playing the Bat. Can maybe Sheltered as well. Although with the extra treasure we could even cast a 4-drop. Magda is next. Does a Plunder commit a crime? Target opponent creates a treasure token, so yeah, that would also trigger Magda. But we can maybe just exile the Plunderer to take care of both abilities. Opponent has a Torch the Tower, unfortunate. So that answers a Pride Maid, so now we're also missing that critical mass of creatures to enable the Vanguard. So, yeah, tough call. Could play the Exemplar, but we're not triggering it right now. Or I can double spell Ruin Lurker Bat, Sheltered by Ghost the Vanguard, exile Plunderer, and then hope they can't remove the Vanguard too easily. Yeah, that seems fine. And the Bat already has lifelink, so it's probably better to diversify. Now the Rover does have reach, but eventually the Exemplar can attack past it. So take 2 for Magda. And then Vanguard gaining a life would be enough to trigger Exemplar to draw a card. Opponent passes, so possible they have some instant speed removal in hand. We're about to find out. Opponent did have a Torture Tower, goes for the Vanguard, but now we're not going to control 3 creatures, so we don't gain any life, and we also don't get to draw. Linden seems decent, can enable the Exemplar by itself. But yeah, opponent's making lots of treasures. Sacrifice 3 to make a 4/4 token. So that's maybe what they're setting up here. Specialists can also deal a bunch of damage in the process. So this is gonna hurt. Plunder and Rover attack. I probably have to double block. So we at least gain a life. Because you have 4 artifacts getting sacrificed, there's potentially 8 damage. So that starts adding up. And our opponent gets a 4/4 token. Vanguard wasn't a bad draw. So if I go for Linden plus Vanguard, Vanguard triggers, don't quite have the mana for Leyline of Hope. But yeah, I think I prefer 3 creatures, Exemplar grows, can stay back to block the dragon. And then depending on what we draw, I can maybe still play something afterwards. Not really in a position to attack. Alright, Sheltered by Ghost, second main should be effective. So enchant the Exemplar. And then what's scarier here? Specialist or the Dragon Token? The Dragon Token we can maybe block. So, could be the Specialist, although currently only have the 1 artifact they can easily sacrifice. Yeah, I think I still go for Specialist, although the problem with exiling Specialist is that we can't attack with Exemplar when they have 6 power worth of flying and reach. So then I would have to wait a few turns to attack. So maybe exiling the 4/4 makes the most sense. Just need to get 1 big life-linking attack in, and then we should be able to stabilize. If our opponent can generate a couple more artifacts, or treasures specifically, then they can burn us to death thanks to the Specialist's ability. Gold Vein for 2. Okay, so if that dies, creates tapped treasures. So it would be safe to block, gain 6 in the process, they get 2 tapped treasures. But that's fine. Get to draw a card as well. And then now we can drop at least 1 Leyline. And go to attackers. And draw Sanctifier. So, do we feel comfortable getting aggressive here? I think so. Yeah, it got pretty scary for a second there. Opponent was close to burning us out, but Sheltered by Ghosts to the rescue. So yeah, the opponent's build seems to be just red-green, and then Magda doubles up as an artifact token generator as well as a sacrifice outlet. So it does pair quite well with a Specialist, assuming you can reliably commit crimes. Which the Generous Plunderer also is good at enabling. So yeah, if you're looking for a red-green build that's not splashing black for Rottenmouth Viper and some of the other artifact synergies, this is not a bad way to approach the red-green artifact sacrifice deck. But it looks like our opponent has disconnected, sadly. Yeah, once we get to this stage of the game, a red-green especially is going to struggle to deal with a 10+ powered lifelinker. At least if you're playing black, you would have access to cards like Embrace Oblivion, for instance, which can still destroy a larger threat. A red-green just doesn't really have those tools. Opponent falls to 2. Play Sanctifier. And pass it back. Alright, and there we go. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. This hand's a little awkward without any cheap creatures to enchant with Sheltered by Ghosts. And Linden and Exemplar kind of want some life gain effects already on the board. So I'm gonna have to mulligan. This is better. I'm gonna keep. And then double Channeler, probably better than Pridemate. And with Sanctifier, a nice way to enable them. If our opponent can answer the Sanctifier, our hand kind of falls apart. Just a headliner for now. So Channeler immediately picks up a +1 counter. And I could attack. So is this mono-red goblins? In which case we kind of want to find flying threats at some point, because they can stall out the ground with Krenko making lots of tokens. So can block the headliner. Maybe they've got a pump spell, who knows. Alright, full bore. Not expecting that one, but we still trade. Move counter onto Sanctifier. And the Howard Claw is next. Okay, good double 1-drop, which maybe sets up Channeler a bit better for next turn. Although if I play Channeler now, it can immediately grow up to a 3-2. Still within range of a lot of burn spells. So I think I prefer double spelling. We're also not too far from getting +2/+2 with a Leyline of Hope. In fact, we get there right now. But once Hard Claw attacks, we go to 26, so then our team shrinks down again. So I have to be careful. It's going to be another headliner for now. So what happens if I double block here? Our opponent would probably just assign 1 damage to the Healer's Hawk, but then when damage is dealt, we gain life at the same time. So even though Healer's Hawk is assigned 1 damage, once the state-based actions are checked, it's now a 3-3, since we're at 27. So then it should survive here. And then double blocking allows us to take out the Hard Claw. Of course, they could have a pump spell to maybe change the equation, or a burn spell. Maybe it would have been a reason not to double block. But that still actually lets both creatures survive, since they assigned 1 damage to the first creature, 2 damage to the second, and they both go up to 3 toughness now. And yeah, opponent's gonna scoop it up here. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting rules quirk to be aware of if you're playing with a Leyline of Hope. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. This hand's not great. Couple of bats, couple of Lindens. Kind of missing some payoff in between. And Linden, of course, is legendary. So, take a mulligan. This has a bit more potential. So, probably just keep all the creatures and get rid of Sheltered, even though it is a very swingy card that can win us specific matchups, especially against other aggro decks. But it feels like I just need the creatures to get everything going. Could also get rid of Linden, keep the Sheltered, which pairs well with the Channeler as kind of a standalone threat. Close call. I think I go all creatures. And then we want a Channeler before we warp. Opponent a Reanimator deck. Could be the type of matchup where a removal spell can come in handy, of course. Do I offer the trade? I don't think I do. They could have another one in hand or Zombify, for all we know. The Vanguard's pretty valuable. Opponent now with a Demon Wall. So that can block Vanguard going forward. But now we could play Haliya. I guess I would only gain 2 life. So maybe I'm better off going for Linden first. And then this can get 2+1 counters if it attacks. So then a 4/3 trades for Demon Wall. Or I can warp and play Vanguard, then we do actually get to draw. Yeah, maybe that's still better. So now they can trade for the Channeler. The downside, of course, we don't get to keep our 3-drop in play until we recast it. And Dredger's Insights, so what can they mill? Another Demon Wall, so not a disaster here. And another Faithful, so they are missing kind of a bigger creature to reanimate. Pridemate also a good pickup, although maybe we just keep the cards flowing by replaying Haliya. And next turn we can double spell. I wouldn't mind finding a Sheltered by Ghosts. Bitter Triumph answers Channeler. Opponent discarded a Jumbo Cactuar, so that's the big payoff. Grow Vanguard so we don't put all our eggs in the Haliya basket. So our opponent's likely playing with Arden to bring back the Cactuar with Menace, Lifelink and Haste. And yeah, once our opponent gains 10,000 life, it's going to be pretty difficult to catch back up. Although technically not impossible. If we make a large enough threats, we might eventually get there. But yeah, that's not a game I necessarily want to play. Alright, looks like our opponent has seen enough. They couldn't quite find the payoffs they were looking for. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand relies pretty heavily on Leonin Vanguard to grow the rest of my team, but we might also draw some other 1-mana life gain effects. So I'm gonna try it, but there's definitely a fail case. If we never gain life, then these are just 2-mana 2/2s and 2/1s, which is not how you win games of Constructed. Archive, opponent looks to be the Artifact deck. Not a good matchup, mostly because of the Star Cage, which can exile all our 1 and 2 drops. So this might be a tough one. Authority is still beatable. ×2. Well, I guess it doesn't matter too much which creature I play. Their removal is mostly going to be exiling my stuff. So then the Channeler doesn't get a chance to trigger. Sawblades being the exception. Probably go for Linden, and then next turn I can double spell. Linden at least survives the Star Cage. Bricks will hit their land drop. So they must have drawn that for a turn. And Shelter by Ghost, potentially an answer to the Star Cage, so want to keep that available. And then for now, I guess Channeler can pick up some counters. But yeah, I'm bracing for impact here, because if our opponent goes land into United Battlefront, they might be able to stabilize while producing some large tokens as well. It's just going to be a Simulacrum Synthesizer, so that can help them set up their Battlefront next turn. So do we actually just have lethal here? Yeah, if we do the math, we get to attack, grow the Channeler some more, and our opponent comes to the same conclusion. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Our hand's a little top-heavy with 2 Exemplars. If Hawk survives, we get some Pridemates going in the meantime, that's fine. But yeah, needing 2 lands and then still 1 card being dead is not ideal. Now, would I keep this hand if we mulligan to 6 and we had this hand -1 Exemplar? That would be a keep. Question is, can we still find a better one? It is close. I think on the play I should still keep, because we have a fine start. But if we fail to draw lands, or the Hawk gets answered, things could fall apart. Opponent is blue-red, but it does not seem like they have an answer for the Hawk. So far so good. Chainsaw can take care of the Pridemates, but we've got another one. We drew one land already, and there's land 4. So opponent doesn't necessarily know it, but the Healer's Hawk is actually the more important creature here. So Jeskai artifacts with a Nurturing Pixie makes sense. Pick up Chainsaw, can replay it. And now Pixie also blocks the Hawk, so that was actually a pretty nice turn for them. And Linden will have to wait. Hopefully the Exemplar survives. Don't think I want to throw away Healer's Hawk just yet. Although would grow Exemplar up to a 4/4, so then it can survive another Chainsaw. So what would the rest of their deck look like? They probably have Seam Rip to exile smaller stuff. So maybe it is worth it to just get the Exemplar up to a 4/4. Healer's Hawk could have gotten exiled by a Seam Rip anyway. Hope a 4/4 is good enough. Weapons manufacturing, alright. The plot thickens. And the Reliquary can still exile my Exemplar after all. Alright, so they've got answers to large creatures as well. This is probably more of a setup turn. Can go a Linden plus Vanguard, since Hawk is not going to have the best time attacking. Although maybe I should still play the Hawk, because if they just remove Linden, Vanguard by itself may not do much, but the Hawk can maybe still at least force them to keep the Pixie back. Now a Cryogen Relic, an incentive to dip into blue. So what's their sacrifice outlet for these munitions other than Reliquary? We don't quite know yet. They keep up 3 mana. Possible they have the Kirin to bounce one of their things back and trade for the Hawk. That would be fine. Is there any instant speed removal for Exemplar that I should worry about? Because I kind of want to play it here. And go to attackers. Alright, we get to draw. They might end up bouncing the Reliquary, but then, of course, we get the other Exemplar back. So Cryogen Relic to draw a card it is. Trades for Healer's Hawk. Alright. So that turn wasn't too bad for me. Can play Vanguard, second main. Possible I'll need my mana elsewhere if we draw our 3-drop next turn, for instance. So Relic, draw another card, make another munitions. Yeah, these munitions have me a little worried. But we haven't seen any amazing sack outlet yet. For now they're just drawing a bunch of cards. So that's fine. And a Ghost Vacuum. That's fine too. Okay, so this turn, start with Channeler. Don't need to play Rune Lurker right away, because we might draw something better with Exemplar of Light. And Leyline of Hope is almost active. I think we can still full send. If they double block Linden, then they're taking a ton of damage of the Exemplar. Opponent's gonna chump. I'm curious to see what their next turn looks like. They're pretty far from enabling Uthros, but it would make a lot of mana with all the artifact tokens. For now, another relic. So they're still digging. Another reliquary can buy them a lot of time. But yeah, we're at 28, so Leyline of Hope pumps the team, so now even a 1-1 turns into a real threat. A Lodestone Needle. Tap up to one artifact, put 2 stun counters on it, so locks down Exemplar, but it still draws those extra cards. And let's see if this can hit the table. And yeah, that'll do it. If you've got some insight into this deck in the comments, make sure to let me know, since I'm curious what the rest of the deck would look like. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a keepable hand. Sanctifier, a great way to enable Ajani's Pridemates. If we draw lands, we can curve into the Exemplar. If we don't draw lands, we're presumably drawing spells we can cast. Against a green landfall deck, having a large Pridemate to block and keep up with their landfall threats is important. And then, yeah, I think I start with Pridemate, even though I could have double one-dropped. Because the sooner we get Pridemate going, the better, and putting Shelter by Ghost on Pridemate is probably one of the best places to put it. And we might already have to cast it next turn. Bristly Bill, not quite as scary as Tifa or Mossborn Hydra. Those are the real threats that can potentially combo kill us even if we're at a healthy life total. So I think we keep Sheltered in hand for now. And then another Pridemate seems fine. Attack for 4. Opponent splashing blue, not exactly sure what for. But that could give them access to some bound spells. Alright, there's a Mossborn Hydra, so that's a must answer. And that does mean I don't get to attack this turn. But it's a little too risky to let them untap with Hydra, especially with Bristly Bill alongside it. So no attacks. But next turn we can grow the Pridemate some more. Hopefully it can keep up with the Chocobo. If not, we'll just stall out the ground and then can still fly over with Exemplar and the Bat. So the fetch land essentially represents 4+1 counters. And the Sky Serpent Seeker Flying Death Touch. It's actually pretty good. Chocobo attacks take 7. Yeah, the Seeker might actually make the difference in this matchup. Especially when we're struggling to hit our land drops. But can warp, play another Sanctifier maybe. At least grow the Pridemates. And then we'll get to draw an extra card, which should help. Could consider attacking with a 7/7 Pridemate, but it feels pretty bad to just trade for the Seeker. But then again, if they activate it, that's also not great for me. So maybe trading here is fine. Opponent falls to 6. Found our third land. So next turn I can recast it. Can still maybe take the hit from the Chocobo. Spring Bloom is pretty decent here, because it also gives him a chum blocker in addition to enabling landfall twice. Yeah, I'm gonna take it. Another Pridemate. Is that better here? Yeah, I guess it is. Can double spell, even though I don't get to draw a card this way. And then there's probably no need to play the bat now. Could just attack with Pridemates, see how they react, and then still have Ruin Lurker's second main. Which maybe affects their decision making. So the Pridemates are trying to keep up with the Chocobo, although their opponent can activate Bill, doubling the number of counters on each creature. So soon we're going to have to chump the Chocobo. Opponent grows the Sky Serpent now. Wouldn't be crazy to double block the Chocobo given the chance. So opponent actually keeps it on defense now. Can take 3. And Linden's not bad. Would make every Pridemate enormous. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 13, 14. I guess I could still block this Pridemate with a Chocobo. But we're also gaining a ton of life with the largest Pridemate. So if there's no foul play, a Linden might actually be the move. But it does seem like they have an instant in hand. So if I attack all out, that's 6 more +1 counters going on to every Pridemate. So they can block one with a Chocobo, they have to chump the rest, and we gain a ton of life of this Pridemate as well. I think it's worth it. Could have also kept the smallest Pridemate on defense. Maybe that was the play. Because now they do kind of get a free block on my 14/14. But we should be alright. And then I kind of want to draw a land here, but the opponent has seen enough already, so that'll do it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with a solid hand. Start with Leyline, and then, assuming no removal, double Vanguard can get the Leyline going quite nicely. But against red aggro, can expect a few burn spells to take out our creatures initially. Screaming Nemesis, also a terrifying card for the lifegain deck. So if it comes down and we get a chance to Sheltered by Ghost Sits, we probably have to take them up on it. Turn 1 Hard Claw. Yeah, I guess I go for Vanguard. Next turn can double Vanguard again. We'll see if they keep up removal or tap out. It's going to be an ET. Okay. So we'll get a chance to trigger triple Vanguard, which immediately gains 6 life with a Leyline of Hope. So that's quite a swing. And we've got more 1-drops to keep the vanguards fueled. So I'm okay offering the trade for Inti. Vanguard's not the best on defense. Another Hard Claw helps with one that can already attack. And Inti gets rid of a Flamewake Phoenix, which our opponent can eventually get back. So those have pretty good synergy. So yeah, opponent able to dump a bunch of extra counters onto their creatures, has a Sarkon. So there might be some dragons left over, as we see the Fire Spitter Whelp. Haven't seen many non-creature spells yet, so those might be coming up. But yeah, we can keep enacting our own plan here. Could Shelter by Ghosts now. I think I still wait for something scarier like a Screaming Nemesis to show up. They could trade for Sarkon, although Sarkon's gonna grow next turn. So we're still at 24, double the opponent's life total, but we're about to take a hit. And a Burst Lightning takes care of Sanctifier. That happens. No blocks. And a Hawk's not bad. So Sheltered by Ghosts, Vanguard. Unclear what to exile. Maybe it is the Whelp so they can block and I get to attack and gain life, and then the Rune Lurker also gets a free attack in. Probably makes sense. So both decks just attacking back and forth, but the life gain deck is still at 24. Despite the red deck's best efforts. If our opponent wants to hit the brakes, they do have the larger creatures to block with, but we now established a few flyers that can still chip in. And even if they get the Flamewake Phoenix back, it's forced to attack each turn, so it's not the best blocker. For now, take the hits, opponent can pump Hard Claw, play a land, pump the other Hard Claw. But we're passively gaining so much life here. And then we should be close to pumping the team with a Leyline of Hope. Needed one more point to get there. Burst Lightning my flyer. Flamewake triggers. Has to attack if they get it back. Opponent goes all out. Alright, so we got to see this updated version of the mono-white life gain deck in action, and yeah, I'm quite impressed by the deck's performance. Haliya has been a perfect addition now that we've lost a Knight Errant with a rotation. Could even see playing 3 copies of Haliya and 3 copies of Linden, kind of split up your legends that way so you're not super likely to draw 2 of them. And yeah, then the Exemplar of Light, another way to draw a few more cards, so we can make up for the loss of the Knight Errant. And then, yeah, overall the deck seems pretty well positioned in the current best of 1 meta, where there's still a lot of aggro decks, where you can potentially outrace them, especially if you start with a Leyline of Hope. The deck can be incredibly explosive, but there's still, of course, the weakness to very controlling strategies that have access to lots of spot removal or some sweepers, especially the Star Cage can be backbreaking if we don't have a Sheltered by Ghosts to get rid of it, and then at 4 and 5 mana there's a bunch of board wipes that can just destroy all creatures, and without creatures our deck doesn't really operate. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.